Welcome to the American Bankers Association podcast at the ABA Wealth and Trust Management Virtual Conference. My name is Gauri Sharma, and I lead the professional certifications group for the ABA. It is my pleasure to welcome Whitfield Athey, CEO of Delta Data, a leading provider of bank trust software solutions and technology. And today we will be speaking to Whitfield about account transfers. So welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Gauri. Really excited to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Well, let's get started, Whitfield. First of all, what have been the barriers to adopting automated processes in the past?
Bank trust transfers are very complex. You have to understand the assets that are inbound and or outbound, and you have to understand the rules around each and every asset as it pertains to the bank trust rules that you work under. And this has generally been a prohibitive capability for the bank trust using services like the DTCC's ACAT, is this near real-time analysis of assets and their eligibility on the platform that's required to meet the time requirements of the DTCC.
Whitfield, what are the forces which are driving this need for transparency and the industry response so far?
So there's two forces that are driving this. First and foremost, it's the client's expectation. In the bank trust world, we've generally held these relationships for decades. And when we initiated the relationships in the 90s and the 2000s, this was more the norm and was acceptable. But as there's this massive wealth transfer to Gen Xers and to the millennials, the expectation set by the last great experience they have. So it's a bit of an issue when you're picking up the phone to talk with somebody about transferring assets into their account, and they just booked an Airbnb in about 6 minutes on, Long Island Sound and a few clicks with a credit card, and then you tell them it could take 3 weeks to move assets between banks. That's the first driver of the change. The second is a natural scaling of the industry. Bank trusts have been consolidated, as have most other financial institutions, and what was a onesie-twosie process for many regional banks in the past are now being tackled in a more consolidated bank back office, and the volumes are much higher. And it really is starting to illustrate that the manual processes that have been in use for decades are just not cutting it. So when we tie those two together, a lack of scalability that increases risk and reputational and financial risk to the back office, and we tie it to a very poor customer service experience, and you keep in mind that this is the first experience that the client has with you. The very first experience could be your worst operational process in your back office. Those three together, that's what's really driving the why now, why are people trying to fix this as we speak?
Okay, well, that makes sense. So along those lines, so if the automated technology is applied, what could be the halo effect of improved customer relationships?
So we have been told that in the worst case scenario that I have heard is a bank trust in the Midwest was losing nearly 20% of the one business that they had acquired. So not acquired like through acquisition, but they would go out, win business, win new trust mandates, and during the transfer process, they could lose up to 20% of the clients. You've got an incumbent who's saying, we told you not to leave, those guys are awful. You've got no ability to update the trust system, so the assets are missing, if you will. And now we get to this automation capability. What halo effect does it provide? As soon as a few get it right, it's going to be required to play ball. We do have knowledge of several large bank trust servicing firms that are doing a pretty good job of it. But again, it takes a lot of back office software to get it right. In that if you're supposed to receive assets, you need to pin them immediately to the trust system. Once they're pinned, you have to account for them immediately when you see them via ACATs. once it's illustrated via a set of rules that are very complex that you can or can't hold assets, you need to communicate proactively with the client that certain stuff's not going to come, or set the expectation that it's non-ACATable and that, there's a 2 or 3 week wait for certain asset classes. It's not about fixing it cold for every single asset transfer ever. It's about proactive communication with your front office and your end clients. Set the expectation early, manage that expectation, and it's going to be a smooth flight. Shockingly, today, the reality of this process is there is no expectation other than 2 or 3 weeks. And there's a best hope that the client is on board for that when you can't see them on the system the assets are leaving, and you can't see them on the trust system that the assets are coming to. So the halo effect is bringing a very high risk from a client loss perspective process up to snuff is going to improve the overall relationship, because think about it, the first view that a client gets with you, that impression is going to last a while. It could take years to wear off and try to explain to them, no, you're a digital first shop and you have innovative technology. If you've made me wait 3 weeks to see assets, I would call your hand on that every time. I'm not positive that that's the best foot forward out of the gate. And the halo effect is, if you get this right, you get off on the right foot. It's easier to manage and maintain that account and keep them using your services long term, which is the whole goal of wealth and trust.
So as I listen to you, clearly what you are suggesting and what differentiates you really is having your finger on the pulse of what the client needs, looking ahead and seeing clearly how to get the client there, and having a clear, not just a plan, but communication strategy with all the different facets, front office, back office, technology, etc., that feeds into it. And then finally offer proactive solutions in real time, which is what clients are looking for. With that in mind, and as you look ahead to 2021, do you have any forecasts or outlook? What is your outlook for 2021?
So my hope is, if you think about the ACAT service and how successful it's been for the broker-dealer world, and if you wonder why, we just talked through the technology reasons and the operational processing reasons and the business rule layer that has to be overcome, why haven't the bank trust really, embraced? Now that we have the antidote to the problem, I hope it's going to flourish. Interestingly, the rules in ACATS is, if you can't send, you're not supposed to ask to receive. So a lot of shops have tried to kind of skirt the rules and say, hey, well, we'll figure it out. You send us the assets, and oh no, we can't actually ACAT to you. The broker dealers are well aware of that, and they will not play ball with you. So as these big platforms are losing assets to regional bank trusts, it's imperative that the bank trust be able to play ball and be able to send assets as well as receive, because the broker dealers will realize the inability to send and say, you know what, sorry, rules are, if you can't send, we're not delivering. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, if you're waiting on assets to leave a large platform, you're not really high on the priority list of their manual processing. So what I hope for in 2021 is the adoption of this by the regional bank trust, and that it flourishes. The new norm is we can ACAT in and out, just like the broker-dealer community, where account transfers are a non-event. It is straight through processing, nobody touches it, and everybody's just looking at exception consoles. That's what we need to get to. But we had to wait on the software to come first. Then we had to illustrate its effectiveness. And now I hope in 2021 that it starts to flourish, and the standard operating model in the bank trust is being able to manage transfers in about a 24 to 36 hour period. 80% of assets should go via ACATS. We can't lose sight of the fact that it's a continual process. You got to send, you got to receive, and you also need to be pulling in the Seabreeze information, which is cost basis on the back end. Interestingly, the Seabreeze is another place that gets falling through the cracks in the manual processes, and the back office is calling the bank that it's leaving, trying to get cost basis in. You really need to be able to handle that cost basis electronically and work through that in an exception-based process, because A, you can't bill on those assets till you have that cost basis. B, you can't invest those assets in the new strategy. You're dead in the water. So if a $10 million mandate comes in the door and you wait 2 months on cost basis, I mean, you've literally lost thousands of dollars. sitting around dialing on a phone that has no business being in the equation of the process.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us, Whitfield. I do wish you all the very best, and hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us, and we look forward to being a part of the rest of the conference too.
Thank you.